Welcome back to Hometown Friends. My name is Chandler Hoffman, and I'm a clinical psychologist, and I'm your host of this podcast. My passion for talking to people about their most foundational friendships comes from my own experiences of both growing up in poverty and having an alcoholic parent. Because of these early influences, I started making friends really early, I think to survive and to manage the fear of being a small and vulnerable child in a pretty chaotic family system. I learned that life could be different and much better by having friends in my life. Not only did I have so much fun with these people, I often turned to them when I experienced hardships and challenges of life, and I was helped by the support or simple knowledge of these friendly connections. This podcast is dedicated to these people, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to interview people from all over the world about the power of friendship and to discuss the ways hometown friends contribute to the people we are today. In this episode, I talked to my friend Greg White. This man is one of the most authentic individuals that I've ever met. Greg grew up on the north side of Berkeley, California, and was raised by parents who camped, hiked, climbed mountains, and gave him permission to be himself and to follow his passions. Greg is also someone who developed friendships really early on, and who became a friendship leader, someone who gathers people together and plays host to them by engaging them in activities that he's passionate about. His exuberance has always been infectious, and he leads people into the woods, to the mountaintops, bike parties, psychedelic journeys, and connects with them through activities like hacky sack, skateboarding, snowboarding, mountain biking, and the communal effervescence of dancing until dawn. Greg has experienced the extreme highs of life and the deep connections to his friends and family, as well as near-death experiences that have brought wisdom and temperance to his current way of life. Please enjoy my discussion with a unique individual, Greg White. Welcome to the Hometown Friends podcast, Greg White. Hey, Greg White, you're amazing. When I thought about doing a podcast on friendships, I thought about who are the people that really benefit from their hometown friends, and I am certainly one of them. But when I thought about that, I certainly thought about you, Greg, because you are fully engaged in the community. When I see you at a mountain biking event because your kid is on the mountain biking team and you yell out, "Chandler Hoffman," I feel like I'm surrounded by love. I feel like I'm surrounded by my community, and your kid knows me, and I know him, and I know your wife, and you have a hometown friend connection in probably every area that I would love to talk about. So I'm glad you're on this podcast to share your story with me about your hometown friends. You said you were born in Denver. I didn't know that, but you grew up in Berkeley. Tell us your little person story, how you got to Berkeley and when you remember your first friends, or who was your first friend. And
in my house, Colorado. Nice. See, I'm flying my colors.
Represent.
So I'm from Denver, but I moved here when I was 5. So basically from Berkeley.
Why'd your parents come to Berkeley?
My dad had climbed all 56 14,000-foot peaks in Colorado, and there were no more peaks to climb. And the last 14 were in California, so he moved out here.
No way.
Because he had to climb all 76 14,000-foot peaks in North America.
Dude. Also,
he got a job here, but I think the mountains were more important. Yosemite, Sierras.
That says a lot. Dude, it makes so much sense that your dad is a climber, and I didn't know that about him because I don't know your family. But what I know about you is you love the mountains, and you climb Lassen and Shasta and ski down it. I've heard many stories about that. So it does not surprise me that you come from a mountain climber.
That's a homie activity that I directly from my dad, he dragged us up there in the Boy Scouts. And then I was like, wait, I can do this without him. I could be the leader.
So you directly got that climbing and that mountain spirit from your dad, you think? Yeah, that makes complete sense. And you
started skiing when I was 2. Wow. I had my own backpack when I was 2.5, carrying my own stuff.
Wow. That's amazing.
Because my sister was born, and then, they were carrying her, so I had to carry my own stuff.
Do you remember the first mountain you climbed?
I remember hiking and being like 5 miles behind my parents,
Wow.
seeing them up there.
Really?
So these memories of like, they're already there, and I'm like miles down the trail.
That's so sick.
So those are the first memories of
Wow.
that. Memorizing my mom's footprint so I could actually follow
That's
them.
sick, dude. That's so amazing.
Nike waffle trainer from 1972. It was the same shoe, and she wore it for 7 years.
Really?
And and it looked like a little
You
waffle.
could pick out her footprints.
Oh, they went that way.
That makes so much sense that you would bring that into, you and I met in high school because you were a North Sider and I was a South Sider. Tell us a little bit about the North Side, South Side cliques, you think? Because there is a thing.
And well, we had a little gang called the Indo mob, which is all about the weed. And so we thought we were in a gang, and Mark Yeager was the leader, and we thought we were so cool, but we were really just going out to get wasted with our gang. We didn't ever do anything bad.
You smoked a lot of weed. Indo.
Graffiti or vandalism or any of that. We were just like all about
smoking
weed
good
mostly.
indica weed.
And drinking. And then the South Side groups, so the house parties is where we all came together. So we had our group up north, and then there was the South Side group, and then all of a sudden, keg party at some house in the middle. And then we all would meet there. They'd play all the rap music, and everyone was dancing till, floor was shaking. We get a keg, and then we get a second keg. $29 kegs of Burgermeister.
Well, that is a thing for us, Greg, in Berkeley.
I mean, the classic Berkeley house party is like a dancing thing, and it's like packed with people, and we would rotate around to different parents' houses, and it was sort of a one-off. Like once you had the party at your house, then never again. But there were plenty of kids, so we rotated around. And then, if the parents were on to us, we just did it at the park.
Do you have memories of your first friends in Northside?
So the oldest one is Mark Yeager. We went to second grade together. And I finished my math book first, and our teacher was super hot. Miss Braden, she drove a 280ZX Datsun. Super hot. And I got a kiss for finishing my math book. Mark didn't, or I did was first, and so it's always been in it.
Did you like being from Berkeley? When you, I mean, you're still here, so I'm guessing you like it.
I mean, Berkeley is like a liberal hippie freak, tie dyes and drugs and free speech. It represents all the things extreme, progressive, and liberal beliefs. Like it's not the rich people that moved here later aren't so much that way. People complain, "Oh, Berkeley's not the same," but the vibe is still that history doesn't vanish. Nope. So Berkeley, if you say, "Oh, I'm from Berkeley," people are like, "Oh, you are not a conservative American. Right. You're not."
We do have this.
Fuck the government, fuck our president. All that shit is bullshit. I'm a Berkeley person.
We have a loyalty to Berkeley more than anywhere else.
Yeah,
like. When you're from Berkeley, you say you're from Berkeley. You don't say you're from I mean, when I went away, you don't say you're from San Francisco. You don't say you're from Oakland. You say you're from Berkeley. Why do you think that is? Why do you think we're so loyal to our Berkeley identity? Well, most of us are, I think.
I mean, and Berkeley is famous on its own for those things. And if you support free speech, civil rights and Black Panthers, and like it all happened here. And so recognizing that history and supporting that history is important. That's why I like it. And then, the weed was never criminalized in Berkeley. My whole life, I got caught by the cops over and over, and they would just take your weed, throw it in the bush. And then 5 minutes later, you go get it back out of the bush.
That's great. When did you?
But they wouldn't arrest you, so it was always like a little bit groovy.
When did you start smoking weed? Do you remember?
5th grade.
Yeah, I think that was probably the first time I did too. In the bathroom at Malcolm X.
Franklin.
Franklin.
The brothers had Colombian gold in the back row of the class, and I was like, "What's going on?"
Do you
Jim Crump. He had the Colombian gold.
Amazing.
And I scored some, and I gave it to my brother, and it was 10 times better than his weed. And he was like, "Man, your little brother's got better weed than everybody."
5th grade at Franklin. Do you remember doing it with somebody else besides your brother?
I mean, the Jim Crump guy who was African American or mixed, they had the really good stuff. But then I had another friend, Eric Loading. His mom was a hippie. And we puffed quite a bit. Eric Loading, right? He's loading the bowl.
So when you got you went to King Junior High, and did you had all those friends that you just talked about, like from the neighborhood? Josh.
Oh, yeah. We were all there.
So did you feel like you had a crew going into King Junior High?
Yeah. I mean, that's King. The problem with Berkeley, they bus you around. So if it's not the school that's down the street from your house, and you don't necessarily know as many people. But King is like right in my neighborhood. We walk to school. We walk back from school. And we've got our skateboards and snowboards all started.
Tell me how the skateboard thing happened for you, because that's a big theme for your life, right? Skateboarding and just snowboarding. Let's talk about how you guys got in.
I mean, I got my first skateboard when I was like 7 or 8. And so it started then down at Thousand Oaks. They had a little hill. You could shoot down this hill. And then in 81, we got our first snowboard. Me, Skylar Oliver, and Ron Rotter, we went in 3 ways on a Burton Performer.
Nice.
Which I still have.
Really?
$120, $40 each. And then I was hooked for life. And
you shared the board?
We shared it because we didn't have any money. We couldn't buy a $120 board. That was absurd.
So how did you actually share you took turns?
Well, you hike up and do one run, and then you give it to the other guy, and he hikes up. Because they wouldn't even let you on the lift at that time.
With the board, they only skis, right?
No, they were like, no.
I remember that. Did it actually have? I remember one of my friends. I think shaped a board, and it didn't have metal edges, and so the difference between a pro board and the one that he had is that they actually added those metal edges. Did this one have a metal edge?
Yeah, when I started, it was just a piece of wood, and it had skags, had like surfing metal aluminum skags in the back. You stuck your feet under these rubber binding things. But I was already downhill skateboarding, so it was just ridiculous. It was like, this is like super easy.
So because of your skateboarding, and what year was...
It's like, it's not cement, it's not death-defying pouring rain in Berkeley after a keg party skating down Los Angeles. Totally. So all of a sudden you're like, oh, snowboarding. And I had been a skier my whole life, so I was already obsessed with skiing. And now to the day, we're planning Dale's birthday next week, and it's a lot of the same people are going on that trip who
started snowboarding with you.
We're the originals.
I have one story where I chased after you guys on the ski slope, where you guys told me to, in high school or right after high school, jump in the car and we're all going. And I wanted to be like you guys so badly, but I didn't have the skill set, and I wasn't a snowboarder. So I was a skier and I wasn't even that good, but I just wanted to hang out with you guys. And I have one day that I fucking chased after you guys, and I saw you guys go off like huge fucking cliffs and just flying in the air. And I was like literally falling down the hill, chasing after you guys. I'd come back a big fucking snowball. But you guys always waited for me, and we fucking made it down together, and we had beers afterwards. And it was huge snow that day. But do you remember that? I don't know if you remember that, but it was just the only day I really tried to hang with you guys and saw the saw the spectacular shit that you guys were doing and how fast and how fucking crazy you guys were, especially you, Greg. Anyhow, you must have done that hundreds of times.
I mean, that started, I remember I got my driver's license when I was 16, and my parents had this huge station wagon. So I was like, well, we'll hop in the car and we'll drive 90 miles an hour to Tahoe and ski all day.
Totally.
And drive back.
That's
whatever.
right. I think when I went up with you, we went for the day, just up and back.
6 hours of driving, plus 6 hours of boarding.
Crazy.
Plus, so.
And the whole thing, I don't think we clipped tickets that day, but you guys were really famous for clipping tickets. I mean, you've told me many times over the years how many days of boarding you got for free. That's like that's a story, man.
And skiing has always been a bit of a rich person sport. But my parents were backcountry skiers, which is free. So I knew you didn't have to pay to hike up a hill, get some powder.
Yep.
I already knew that. And then actually my dad taught me how to clip. His friend at Winter Park in 1961 had a folder and had every ticket for the whole year. They'd save them. And then the next year, they had like 5 stamps, a woolly mammoth, an elephant, a bear. They only had like 12 stamps. And so he would save them. And then every morning he'd be like, all right, everybody, here's tickets for today. And so I knew that story. I was like, wait a minute. These fools, you can ski for free. So you go half day. You sleep in, have a big breakfast, have your first beer in the parking lot at noon, get your ticket at 12:30. And then you get at Squaw, they were open until 9 o'clock at night. So you could ski from 1 till 9 for free.
Amazing.
Seemed like a pretty good plan to me. And and then I would drag people up. Oh, you should come do this with us. I'm like, what do you mean? I can't afford all this. I'm like, here's a board.
Yep.
I'll clip you a ticket. Bam.
Because you guys used to do that, my wife and I, Chrissy, when we first met, we would do that. Basically, I didn't know that you could actually do that, but I had heard from you guys that you could do that. So Chrissy and I would go into the parking lot same way and clip tickets early in our relationship, and we would ski for free for the same way. Only because I knew you guys did it. I probably would never have even come up with that idea if I didn't have hometown friends that were doing shit that I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to do that shit.
I still clip in Jackson Hole when I'm on vacation.
Amazing.
I mean, my family gets up late. We get up to the mountain at noon. I'm like, am I going to pay?
Totally.
No. They're like, where did Dad go? He always disappears for 20 minutes when we get here. I'm like, yeah.
That's amazing. It is one of the themes of this Hometown Friends podcast that I have thought is like, I learned how to be me from other friends, from my hometown friends, like even loosely connected that I didn't even know you or wasn't really that friends with you, but I knew the kinds of shit you did. Right. And that was cool to me. I haven't done all the stuff that you've done, but I clipped tickets because of you. Isn't that weird?
I mean, you learn a lot of stuff. You're at that party and like all these people are telling you all this crap they've been doing. And you're like, oh, wait a minute. That guy did it. I can do it.
Do you have any thoughts about something you've learned or you did? Like, I've definitely done that.
I mean, the skateboarding was like Brant built a ramp. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to build a ramp too. So, stuff like that. Like, I would have never thought to build a ramp if I hadn't known if other people had done it already.
Did Brant build that ramp in your backyard? Because I remember you had a ramp in your backyard.
No. Our ramps were at sort of similar times. But he was 85 and I was 86. And I think my ramp might have been predated his. I'm not sure.
That was another story, though. I remember.
But the ramps are important.
That you guys had not only did you have a hot tub in your house and grow weed on your roof, You had a ramp in your backyard.
You could skateboard naked. Get out of the hot tub and skateboard naked. I did it. It happened.
That's awesome. That's a good scene.
And then that thing, so the ramp, because ramps were so rare at that time, all the pros from the whole Bay Area, all the hardcore guys that were 10 years older than me, I would all show up with beer. Oh, yeah, we brought cases of beer. And I'm like, sweet, I'm 16. Thank you.
That's
Joel Chavez,
wow.
all these guys fucking.
So they couldn't find a pool, but they knew the ramp was in Greg White's backyard.
I mean, we were skating pools at that time
Yeah.
too, but the ramp was just like, it was like a mini pool. And all the people would come over and would skate.
And you built that yourself? Nice.
Yep.
Do you remember how you did it? Like, and why?
We stole all the wood. We were going to build it at Skylar's, then he busted us stealing wood at night. And he's like, all this wood's stolen? Get out of here. So then we dragged it all over to my house. So my parents just didn't bother to ask, where'd you get all this thousands of dollars of wood? Cool.
That's crazy, dude. So you had a ramp in your backyard, a hot tub in your backyard. You had all these friends from your high school, not only North Side, but you then got the South Siders. You were hooked up. When you look back on that, I mean, I feel like it's an embarrassment of riches. I say this all the time. Not only do I feel embarrassment like now that I walk through my community and people shout my name out, and not all the time, but a lot. But like back then when I think about it, and I think a lot of people do when they think about high school, some people don't, they just wish they could
hate it. I hated high school. I'm like, what? Why?
Exactly. So why is it different for us? I mean, well, I don't know. It's different for you and I because we both loved high school because we had all these fucking friends, right?
It's all about the social.
Exactly.
You were going to see 300 freaks that day.
Yeah.
Smoke weed 5 times a day during school and hang out in the park and play hacky sack all day long. Go skateboarding between classes. Like, it wasn't really about schoolwork.
Right.
I mean, 80% of it was social.
Now, there were some of your friends who were pretty academic. Yeah?
I mean, I was smart.
Yeah, you're smart. That's the smart is not the point. It's the academics, right? If you're smoking weed and cutting classes, then you're not like achieving in the academic realm necessarily, or you're just achieving because you're hella smart and you don't need to do any of it, right? But there's stratifications, but everybody was having fun. We were having a lot of fun in high school.
Out on the quad with the hacky sack and all the cliques, there are like 20 different cliques, the punks and the goths and the heavy metal dudes, the heshers, stoners, the skateboarders, the lesbians, the slopes. Climb on the roof of the C building. We had our secret weed smoking spot on the roof.
You're right. It was all about the people that we were with, right? That these people, there's nothing more important than friends in high school from my perspective. I mean, that's what makes it so much fun. That's why I think a lot of people love high school or don't. They either had a lot of great friends or they didn't, or it wasn't good enough to make it amazing. But
well, I think it's an opportunity. Yeah. When else are you with 3,000 crazy kids packed together for 4 years? Like, that doesn't happen again in your life. And if you don't get that, and all of a sudden you're out of high school and you didn't have that, it is a very influential.
Yep.
And the memories, I just remember so much from that time, First girlfriends, first this, first that, finding these sports, mountain biking, skateboarding, snowboarding, hacky sack, reggae. There's a whole, we haven't gone to the reggae subject.
Let's go there. How did that get introduced? Because
So reggae sunsplash was like a thing at Berkeley at Greek theater. It happened every year. I didn't really know what it was. I didn't even know who Bob Marley was. But I went to the show with my friends. They dragged me. Like, this is the thing. You're going. Of course, we probably took shrooms or something. But it was like, from that moment on, I was like, this is it. This is music where you praise, you smoke weed to praise, the God, the weed God, or what. I don't know. My version was very, it was like perfect. A music where you smoke weed and it's amazing.
And you have fun.
And then
you commune with other
that
people.
led to the Reggae on the River thing. People were like, oh, there's this festival. Yeah. You go camp for 3 days in the river. I'm like, what? All right. Which I think I went to in 87 after high school. I don't think I went in high school.
I think it may have.
But it was the high school, same group was there.
Why do you think you kept in touch with those high school friends? And what did you do after high school? First of all, what did you do after high school?
I mean, this is a whole nother story. This is a little segue. Yeah. But so when I was gone from Berkeley, living in Indonesia or snowboarding in Utah, whenever I get back to Berkeley, I go to Northside Pete's. And you wouldn't even call anyone. You didn't have to. You'd show up, and they'd be all there playing hacky sack on the corner, drinking their 3 cups, smoking their 3 doobies, and you'd be like, oh, I'm back in Berkeley. So it was that kind of stuff, like a community.
A hub.
I mean, that Pete's Coffee was like the hub.
Totally.
Which now there's like, Pete's is like Starbucks. It is. But back then it was like a place you could show up after months of being away and see like 5 homies would show up.
That's amazing.
And then, they're like, oh, they were, whatever things they were doing, they would cue you into it. Oh, we're doing Reggae on the River. We're doing the Sunsplash. Right. We're doing this.
Yeah.
Red Hot Chili Peppers are playing at the Omni.
That's a good one.
With socks on their penises.
Yes, they did. Well,
and of course, Max Fox had been mountain biking and had poison oak all over his sock, and he threw it up on the stage.
Holy shit. That's a story.
But Reggae on the River, that ended up becoming huge. It's kind of a Berkeley. I mean, I turned on to it through Berkeley people. Yeah. But then we went for 20 years in a row. We had Little Berkeley. There was,
yes, we did.
30 or 40 people from Berkeley were there every time, and you could, had their Little Berkeley camp, and then we had our party bus that we showed up on with 20 idiots on a party bus.
Amazing. And
they were like, you can't bring that bus in here, and CB just ignored them, started honking, and drove across the bridge. Like, come back. Can't drive this vehicle.
Wow.
And CB just drove around them.
Now, the bus was not the first time you guys had gone, right?
That was probably 10 years before the bus. I mean, 87 we got the bus in like 94, 5? Maybe?
Now, yeah, so there's Reggae on the River really brought together a lot of Berkeley heads, right? There was, like, as you said, 30 or 40 people that you knew in this public space. And then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, where you would know more and more and more people. And we would all be camping at the same place on this huge river, on the Eel River, yeah? And then you guys would go all night with the party bus because the bus had an amazing sound system on it.
I mean, we were ravers, so we were like, as soon as the reggae was done, we wanted to rave. And so we would play the house music late at night. I mean, there was already a tradition of people staying up all night at that fest around the drum circle. So we were like, wait, people are up around this drum circle all night anyway. We can do a rave. Of course, the reggae heads didn't appreciate that music, but
a lot of other people did.
And now, CB, it hasn't happened for a few years, but the last 5 years that they did reggae, CB got paid to bring his bus
Whoa.
and spin records all 3 nights, starting at, midnight to 5 a.m. He had this set that he was supposed to play, and they paid him, gave him 20
No way.
tickets, and
I did not know that.
so it turned into like almost a gig for
Totally.
him.
How did you meet CB?
And that at the rave.
Yeah.
That's the thing that you weren't a raver.
I wasn't.
So in '92, when I got back from college, they're like, "Oh, there's these dance parties, thousands of people in a warehouse," and I was like, "What?" And first one I went to, boom, 2,000 people, the Concourse Convention Center, lasers shooting, 7-hour dance party without even a break. You just dance 6 straight hours.
Totally.
And I was like, ooh, I like this. So that was a whole second set of, and it turns out it was all of these friends from Berkeley who were drawn to that party because of our roots.
Yep.
And that became like a second group of hometown friends. Guys I didn't know, but they all had gone to Berkeley.
So you were familiar with them, kind of.
Lion, Lucky, Jabali, Matt
Right.
Wade, CB, Dale. These were all people I knew vaguely. But then when the rave hit, we were out, 4 nights a week doing this dancing till dawn.
Amazing.
So that created a huge connection. And I think people, because they were from Berkeley, we were ready for that. We wanted that.
Because of what?
We didn't want the party to end at 2 in the morning. We wanted to keep it going.
You were primed for both the music, but also the dancing part of the party.
Yeah.
And then these loose connections that you feel pretty comfortable with people already all the way, right? Because you're kind of familiar with them.
Yeah. And then it turns out at 6 in the morning, when everyone's gone and there's just 20 people left on the dance floor and the sun's coming up, who was there? 9 of them were from Berkeley. You're like, whoa.
That's amazing. So the most dedicated portion of the ravers were Berkeleyans.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. I wonder why that is.
Drugs.
Yeah, well, that's part of it, for sure.
I mean, familiarity with the psychedelic world of, shrooms and stuff like,
Well, that's interesting, actually. You bring that up, that the idea that, because, one of the identifications of Berkeley is that we were experienced with drugs, right? That psychedelics in general, we were partying with psychedelics. Many of us were smoking weed. Certainly, drinking was part of it too, but that these drugs that actually kept you up all night were part of the experience. You don't stay up till 6 o'clock and watch the sunset. Watch the sunrise unless you're stimulated, right?
There were some sober ravers, but they were very rare.
Yes. But we had this experience. We had actually, I say from people from Berkeley, well, you're like an OG kind of thing, if you're experienced, you're not there is something about that. Yeah. There is something that
we took shrooms in 9th grade and it does change the way, it expands the mind.
Yes.
And it expands your, your view of the world. You're like, hey, you see things differently, or you see more, or you see beauty in things.
Well, of course,
it enhances art, it enhances music, it enhances. Drugs are a tool to enhance your reality if they're used in the right way.
I think especially psychedelics, because they're using psychedelics now, earnestly in psychological, not only study, but treatment, right? They're actually using psilocybin to treat depression and anxiety.
And it's legal in Oakland to use psychedelics in a shamanic setting. You can't.
Yes.
you can't deal them or grow them or have them, but you can use them for therapy and for shamanic, stuff.
Yeah. And so we were taking them to get high, but there actually were it sounds like you're saying there were benefits. I could say there were definitely benefits from taking psychedelics when, I was taking them to get high, but what I found was that as you said, my perception changed and I saw the world differently. And that was my first foray into seeing the world like differently, not exactly the way, right? It wasn't normal. I saw different things. I felt different things. I came to different ideas. And that's always primed me, I think, even to be a psychologist or even to talk to people about changing their perception or doing meditation currently. I was introduced early to it, and maybe it was a tool. I don't know. I never thought about it. What do you think?
I mean, I think you realize that you can change the way you think. Some people are set in their ways. They think, have conservative viewpoints that they got from their parents, and they stick with those their whole life. Whereas, we here in Berkeley, exposed to all these different ideas, and then you're, wait, I'm going to check these all out. You open up and you're exposed to more ideas and you're open to more ideas. And then you incorporate that stuff into your life.
Yep.
Different religions, Buddhism and this and that, and different kinds of spirituality. And
yeah. That made a big difference for me to have the idea that I didn't think, well, I guess I thought it was right. I thought I was sort of myopic in my own view, and I think we all are, right? But that the idea of going out into the world and being from Berkeley, first of all, it gave me a lot of confidence because I had a lot of experiences with other people. But I'd also have this exposure to the big wide world of drugs, alcohol, but also different ways of thinking. Not probably the ways of thinking that I got exposed to outside of Berkeley, which were more maybe conservative, maybe more religious, maybe more, sort of Christian, or we had a bubble. I think still to this day, kids from Berkeley feel like we're in a bubble, and not every other people don't think like us or don't have the same experiences. I think most people who go away from Berkeley have a time when they're like, oh shit, the world's not like Berkeley.
I lived in Salt Lake for 3 winters, and it's very different.
Yep. And you went there for college or for?
No, I was a snowboard bum.
Got it.
So when I got out of college, I did 3 years of snowboard bumming. 150 days the first year, 100 days the second year, and 120 days the third year. So I did 370 days of snowboarding.
Holy shit.
3 years. Which pretty much cemented all that.
Did you have other people with you?
Matt Burrows.
Hometown friend.
Josh Collins, Skylar Oliver, John Lee, Blake Von Nopka, Josh Collins. I dragged them all out there.
Wow.
Because the powder was so good.
Yeah, yes, it was.
And you could rent a Mormon family house with like 7 bedrooms for $700.
Holy shit.
Just go crazy. Snowboard 150 days in a row.
Wow. And you were clipping tickets at that point, or did you get a pass?
No. I worked at the snowboard ski bums work at the ski area.
Yes.
Then you get a free pass.
Yes.
You have to work. So I worked in a breakfast restaurant 6 to noon.
Love it.
4 days a week, and then they would let you free. You get a full season pass.
Nice.
Snowbird, Utah.
Snowbird, right. I skied there
neck
one time.
Powder up to your neck.
Oh my God. I have a story of, I went to Snowbird. I guess I'll tell it. Rob Aids and I were working at the Claremont Hotel, and we met this guy. And he's like, I have a place at Snowbird. and he was like a client of ours. I was a bartender, and Rob was the manager at the bar. And we started talking to this guy, and we like smoke weed with him or whatever. And Rob lived right across the street from the Claremont. And we were sitting there, and this guy said, "Yeah, you guys can go to my house in Snowbird." And we were like, "Cool." So we like went to this apartment at Snowbird, and then Rob and I took LSD and then like skied the whole day, and we lost each other like the first minute of the day. And so we totally skied separately or snowboarded separately. And then at the end of the day at about 4:00, I see this guy laughing to himself on the lift going up, and it's Rob Ace. And I'm like, "Hey, Rob." And we like pointed at each other, and then I like waited for him when we got a couple runs at the end of the day, and all we were doing was just screaming and laughing and powder. And then we go back to this apartment, and we had an amazing time. We sat in the hot tub, and then we were checking out, and they're like, "Who are you guys?" And we were like, "We're with these family." And they were like, "That family, that's not even real. Like, you're not even supposed to be here." And we had stayed there like 3 or 4 nights or something like that.
Oh.
And we grabbed our bags and cut out and laughed because we like were squatting in somebody's house. We had no idea. But we had a great ass time.
You're okay with it.
Yeah. Well, we were cool.
Bad.
We didn't know we were squatting, but we did. That's my funny snowbird story, that we squatted in somebody's house and kicked it. But at least I got the Utah snow for one day.
Yeah, snowbird is amazing.
Amazing.
On this subject, one of the big things is the old school bros trip.
Yeah.
So like we already did one last week, and Dale's birthday is coming up on the 4th. So I get like as many of the old idiots, 7 idiots in my van, and we drive up there. The trash talking, the shit talking alone is legendary. Forget the boarding. Just now they have these lifts with 6 seats.
Yeah.
So you get 6 Berkeley idiots on one lift, smoking hella weed and talking hella shit. It's absurd. You don't even have to board. Just get on the lift.
That's great. The 6-person lift has changed the whole experience.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah,
That is
Dale,
awesome.
CB, me, Noah Dar,
Love
Josh
it.
Collins, all on one lift.
What would you do without these people in your life, Greg? You wouldn't be as connected. I mean, you have these themes, right? Your skateboarding, your snowboarding, your music, your parties, your reggae, your mountain biking.
I mean, the one thing about that is if I didn't have the hometown friends, I've learned that you just invite people to do those things. So there'll be like 9 hometown friends and then one weirdo from San Francisco.
Totally.
And all of a sudden he's just like part of the crew.
Yes.
Like my college buddies are part of the B-Town crew. If
Yes.
you ask any of my friends, like, "Oh, Babas, he's Berkeley." I'm like,
Yeah.
no, he's from San Francisco. I met him in college. They're like, "What do you mean? He's always there. He's always a part." And I'm like, well, that it's not exclusive. The
Right.
Berkeley thing, it's not like, "Oh, you're not from Berkeley, fuck you."
Right.
It's like, please
Exactly.
join. We don't care.
Well, somebody said this on.
Not a judgment. It's not a judgment.
No, we
Not
bring
exclusive.
the idea is that there's such a tight community of people feeling close to each other. It extends to other people that are connected to other people. They don't actually have to have gone to Berkeley High to feel like they're in the same hometown crew, because you're already vetted,
Yeah.
right? It's like,
You know, Greg,
exactly.
you're
Well,
in.
Yeah, you don't discriminate about people. You want people to be involved in the things you are doing, and that extends to anybody who knows anybody. But there is a hub of hometown friend connections. You know,
That's the inner hub.
that I wonder if that is something that I'm sort of exploring. Is like, is this unique? Is this universal? Like people who come from, I don't know, Nashville or Cleveland, do they have the same?
It definitely happens in other places.
It
There's
must.
lots of hometown pride is a thing.
It is.
Like my buddy from Yugoslavia, or not Yugoslavia, I'm sorry, Czech, and he's all about this, and he'll tell you endless stories about how deep his hometown is. He makes dance hall reggae music, and he's a DJ. Cuba is amazing. And,
Wow.
And so, like, to meet people, so it's not universal to Berkeley. I've met people who are just as into their home scene, and he's always like, "Come."
That would be so
Please
cool.
Come to my spot. And
yes. So that's actually great for my purposes, Greg, because I'm thinking, right? We're just investigating Berkeley for now, but at some point, I want to hear from other people about their hometown experience, right?
It could open up.
Yeah, because it's a universal thing to have all these loose connections, but how people from way back to have the kind of relationships and the familiarity that you have from so far back, and to be able to actually have the quality of relationships that come from that. Because when you just meet somebody, it's different. It's a different kind of friendship. These kinds of friendships, I think, are unique, right? I think most people would say they are unique. They're different.
Yeah.
And you can start pretty easily. You can start pretty fast with people that you're loosely connected to, like people who are already vetted, But you can also, I think there's more, that loyalty. There's more sense of belonging. There's more sort of vulnerability. There's, you just are more authentic. You're more yourself around these people that you've known for a long time, or even loosely connected to it.
Yeah. That reminds me of the other thing that brings my group together is our house party. Because that's what was the original thing in 8th grade. We had a dance party. We played Rick James. We drank some Kahlua and barfed. And like that night was amazing. I remember it perfectly. I remember the smell of the barf. And then she told me to shut up. The wife told me that story's inappropriate.
Don't tell that story.
But so to the day we still do the house party.
That is the thing, right? You represent like a house party to so many people. People love to be invited because they don't do that all year, right? Or they rarely do it, but then they show up and they dance. And if you're from Berkeley and you grew up dancing at house parties, it feels like home. Even if you
20 idiots that were there in high school are there still.
Exactly. And maybe even new people that weren't there in high school, but still want a place to gather. Yeah. People want a
DJ list. We got Noah Dar, Mark Yeager.
Exactly.
DB.
I try to show up to that party because it's an opportunity to dance to music I really like. And it does feel like, it feels like something I haven't been able to do, and that a lot of people, you don't do that all the time in your adult life, or we don't, as we've progressed through our adult life, where it's not as carefree. It's not obviously as party central, but when you get an opportunity to do it, there's something very awesome about it. There's something really great about bringing people together, and you continue to host dance parties, house parties.
Host. The Berkeley High mountain bike team. That I didn't really know that much about it. Then my son did the Devo development team with Morgan.
Right.
And after the first ride, he was like, "This is it. This is, we're in the park with 30 kids, and we break into these groups with the dads, and we ride around in the forest." He's like, "This is it," like it just clicked for him. And I saw the whole community and the lifestyle, and was like, wow, I'm a dad, and there's a position, I can have all these positions as a volunteer, driving the kids around. And so that opened up a huge thing. It connected me back to Berkeley High.
Nice.
Because they really didn't. I hadn't really been over to Berkeley High in so long.
Right.
All right.
Well,
And now the mountain bike team is just, that's his whole life.
yeah, Chase is a senior now, right? And I think I had my first ride with Chase. Was he a freshman by that? Maybe a sophomore? I don't know. We went through the pandemic together. And
Sophomore.
yeah, so a sophomore. But that is amazing, right? My daughter was on the mountain biking team. That's why I started to coach. And I found the same thing. Like, not only was this an amazing opportunity for me to volunteer, but I could ride my bike with kids, with young people, and then there'd be other people that I know, either people that I knew from high school who were raising their kids, who were on the team. Dominic Tracy and I had 2 kids on the team, so we started coaching together. And that relationship is amazing because that got me through the pandemic, is like riding with Dominic and riding with a team. But having an opportunity to meet your kid and then to be with you in that community, Greg, has been awesome for me because, again, this is we have a connection and we've known each other. We went on a backpacking trip in high school together. I've been to your parties. We've gone to house parties together. You scream out, Chandler Hoffman. And I scream out, Greg White, and we give each other high fives. And we're in the same community again. And we're raising our kids. We're coaching and being fathers to kids on teams now, which is a totally different way of being with each other. But man, it feels so amazing to see you at all these events and to have, a big hug waiting for me. But having you in the mountain biking community, Greg, and having Chase have a lot of hometown friends, like you facilitate for him this opportunity to have a big group of friends. Like when I went to your house party, his whole friend group was in the back and he had 20 or 30 hometown friends with him. And you could just see how happy you were to support that for him because you had a similar experience and you knew how amazing it was. Yes?
Yeah, no, our house is we love to host because I remember we didn't always have a place to make that group. So now with my kids, I'm like, they can all come over here.
Yes.
Which backfired once where we had 100 people in our yard.
Yes.
Jumping the fence to get in.
That does happen.
So now we're kind of the medium part, small parties are still good.
Yeah.
With his friend group, and they do backyard movies, they do hot tubs, they do outdoor fire pit, they have little barbecues, like they're always here.
Do you think they really do you think that Chase appreciates all of that? I mean, you can see he's thriving in those groups, right? So that must make you so happy. But do you think at that age they actually understand what they have?
I think he understands because some of his friends' parents they moved here from somewhere else. They don't host, they aren't involved, or they work, or I don't know.
I think it's really spectacular. And I actually wish that I had had a parent like you, right? To actually know how important these friendships were and are, that you are able to facilitate the opportunity for Chase in as safe way as possible to give him this experience of having all these really deep, fun, amazing relationships, right? Because we benefited from it. We, by hook or by crook, we figured out how to have these big groups of people connected to us, and we love it so much that we want our kids to have the same experience. Am I speaking the truth?
Yeah.
And it's amazing, right? Again, my question is, does Chase or any, do you think kids at that age, I mean, he's a senior, and one of the things I'm curious about is like, will they be interested in the podcast about hometown friends? A lot of the kids I coach with, they're like, yeah, we know how good it is to have these kinds of relationships. Now, I think they don't actually know because they haven't got out into the world and looked back at 55 and go, oh shit, that was like the best time of my life. You know what I mean?
Right. We didn't realize probably when we were in it.
No.
That it was so different or so unique or so
important.
That it was going to be important later.
Right. Now, that's a big question for me in my whole investigation, if you will. It's like, is this just a developmental period for me because I'm 55 and I'm like, oh shit, how did I get here? And those guys were amazing, you know? Or is it like, can you at 18 think, I'm living my best fucking life. I'm so connected to all these people. I'm having so much fun. I'll never leave, you know, I'll always be connected to many of these people. Because some of the people I'm not connected to, but I could have looked back and be like, I'll always be connected to these guys. And a lot of those people I still am. And they make a difference. Not only
the mountain bike team, Chase feels that those are friends that he'll have forever type of thing.
Yeah. It is also doing stuff together. Like if you do an activity together, that does make it a lot of fun.
I mean, that was one of your little questions. How do you stay connected with people, or why, or what is in it? For me, it's activity. So it's the old school snowboarding trip. It's the Mount Lassen camping. It's going on these bus trips with weirdos, 10 of us in a bus, you know, going to the reggae show. Like we went to Steel Pulse last year and it was like, I didn't make a plan with anyone, but there was like 20 homies all racked up in there.
Totally.
So like, you know, that stuff.
It is. It's great to, I've read some research that it's more that men tend to do more stuff together, like that's how they socialize. But I think a lot of people do. I mean, I think it's not gendered necessarily.
Some people go golfing.
Right.
That's their thing.
Yes. Yeah, it's an activity that you rally around.
Spend 5 hours walking around some lawn, whacking little balls. Totally. It's not about the golf.
No.
I mean, some people play golf alone. It seems weird to me, but like if you're with a couple friends or even with just one friend, you're spending all that time. It's like a whole day.
That's right.
Play 18 holes. And so I don't like it or understand it, but I understand that social side of it, perhaps.
Totally. Now, have you changed over time in terms of the things that you like to do? But it sounds like, I mean, you still cultivate these relationships by skiing, by boarding together, by doing backcountry events or going to resorts.
I mean, I think I'm more connected with the people I have activities to share than there is no activities. You know, like I didn't see you for years, but now that we have this mountain bike thing, we see you all the time.
Well, I think it's a great model. It's like you don't actually have to be fully connected to anybody to reconnect with them pretty quickly over something you do, whether it's, you know, dancing or mountain biking, or you find yourself, you know, maybe ballroom dancing or some other shit that other people do and if you know somebody, that's another thing. It's like growing up in your hometown and raising your kids, you see people, you know, now you're seeing people at the high school, which is a whole different, you know, that's a whole other feeling of community connectedness when you enter in the high school for your kids. And then, back to school night, and you see all your hometown friends with their kids.
Go to the Telegraph Christmas holiday fair. You see all sorts of weirdos.
Yes, you do. Yeah, that's a community. That's a Yeah,
I don't
that's a
even buy
location.
anything. I just
Me
go
neither.
up there to talk trash.
Yeah, exactly. If you walk down Telegraph Avenue around Christmas time, you're going to see some hometown friends for sure. Greg, do you have anybody you admire from your hometown?
No, Dar, he'll DJ your party, and all of a sudden he has the whole crowd singing along, and you're like, what? How is this even happening?
Yeah. I admire your way of continuing to connect with people and the why and how your hometown friends have made your life better. I just admire that you've always put yourself out there, that you've always been a social person, that you know that you're social, that you invite, as you say, everybody. No one's not not welcome, and that you have continued to find ways to party in more adult ways. But
I got a minivan so I can travel with 7 idiots.
yeah. You bought that
It's
specifically.
called Jeff Spicoli. When you show up and like you open the van door and 7 people pile out, cloud of ganja smoke.
Exactly. And that's fun still, Now, you had a couple things I wanted to ask you about. You stopped drinking. I remember there's a story around that.
Yeah, 21 years.
Now, how did you figure out that you were to stop drinking?
I had a medical thing, pancreatitis.
Okay.
Which is from drinking.
Gotcha.
So I don't think everyone else in our group realized the dangers of drugs and alcohol are very real.
Yes.
And not everyone, recognized that, myself included.
Right.
And I just got lucky, not lucky, but I got this condition that if I drink, I die.
Wow.
So I'm really not trying to die.
No.
It's not that fun.
How did you figure that out? What happened? Did something happen?
It was the episode, yeah.
Yeah.
Your pancreas goes haywire and it starts eating your own body up.
Wow.
And it causes all this pain. And like Vietnam vets, you see a Vietnam vet like dead on the side of the road. A lot of the time it's pancreatitis.
Wow.
That kills alcoholics. And if you do a second episode, that's when it kills you.
Wow.
So it's super serious, but in a way it's a blessing. I'm free.
Yes.
From that.
You had this medical condition that now makes it incapable for you to drink, but it sounds like you think of that as
super positive.
There's a silver lining there.
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of us don't have, right? We stop drinking for many reasons and don't realize how bad it is or have too much of it over too much time. Right.
I mean, that segues into a whole, like the people we've lost kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
Sure. All this positivity and all this partying and all this and all that. Also, we've lost some people and there is a whole dark side to it.
Yes.
We don't need to go into that.
Well, actually, I think there's some real value to that because that makes it real. That makes it actually honest, doesn't it, Greg? Because as much fun as we had partying, not everybody was able to continue to have fun. Actually, probably no one continues to have fun partying too long, too hard. You have some personal experience, but you also have real experience of, again, we started partying because it was so much fucking fun. And this is how everyone starts partying. And then you live long enough, and if you keep partying, there are consequences if you keep partying at that level. Is that right? I mean, come on. We all know this. Exactly.
You could get a pancreatitis and a pacemaker by the time you're 50. Fucking party!
Exactly. So those are some of the fucking downsides that we actually can't just continue to party because there will be physical, mental consequences, no doubt about it.
I mean, ideally, the drugs open your mind to something and you experience it, and then you don't need the drug anymore. I mean, that's the ideal way to be experienced and take that experience and use it in your life, but not be a junkie,
Right. I think that's
or an alcoholic, or
yes. That is sort of the theory around psychedelics, is that it can open your brain up, you can open your mind up, it can expand your way of experiencing consciousness, and then you don't have to do it every day. You can still take that new way of being with you. And I think that's the therapeutic effect. But I don't think that actually happens with alcohol necessarily.
No. I mean, the alcohol, I think when we were, in high school, it was a lubricant. You could go to a party and have a few beers, and all of a sudden you're talking and laughing and dancing, and you might not have done all that.
That's right.
Not that you need it, but it facilitated those things.
Definitely.
And being able to, for me, I have all those experiences, but then I gave it up. So I got the good stuff from the alcohol, the social interaction stuff, and the dancing, and feeling okay in my body, and not being, self-conscious. All that you don't worry about any of that. So that's the positive part. But then, I mean, alcoholism is no joke. I was at a party the other night at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And no one could make any sense. They were like, I'm like,
totally
nice, but those are not words. I just smile and wave. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to be able to see that, and be like, I mean, I have a lot of friends who have drinking problems.
Yep.
And I try and tell them this, whatever. I try not to get too preachy, but
yep,
they don't really need it anymore. Like, they've already had those experiences, and the loosening up of their, that already happened. You can't keep doing that for 30 years in a row, 50 years in a row.
Nope.
It just doesn't keep happening, especially with alcohol.
It's so true.
I mean, there's a whole list of drugs that I've had to get rid of. Alcohol, and you go down the list.
Yeah.
The bad drugs, you have to avoid all those.
Yep. And not everybody avoids them, because the more you use, the more you're looking to get more high. There's sort of like the tolerance issue, or the desire to get higher. I mean, that's real. And that, I think
it's even more popular now, drugs. Like, if you go out to 20-something party, it's like, table covered in piles of cocaine, and people are all high on pills, and people are, who knows?
Yep.
And it's not like it's gone away.
No.
The problem part of it.
Yep. Yeah. So it's interesting.
Luckily, my kids are kind of square, though. I don't know how that happened, that they're square and I was not, I think it's a backlash against me. Well, I think my pancreatitis scared them.
I bet.
That was another blessing of that. Daddy almost died from drinking. Like,
totally.
That's a pretty serious thing.
Yes, it is.
For them to know about.
How did you find yourself staying in Berkeley, or wanting to raise your family in Berkeley, in your hometown?
I mean, I was drawn back to my parents still living here, and my home, the house I grew up in was always there. So I had that. It brought me back. And then something as simple as seeing 5 homies at Pete's Coffee without calling people. Like, to me, that was something that I yearned for. If I was gone for 6 months, I'd be like, I'm going to get back.
Yes.
Play some hacky sack. Pete's.
It's like
Indo, Mom.
It's coming home.
And then the other thing we've been doing for 32 years, is Takra. It's a game from Thailand, hacky sack volleyball.
Yes.
And hacky sack's a very Berkeley thing. We played at Berkeley High all day, every day.
Yep.
So all my close homies, they play hacky sack, or they know how to.
Right.
So we played this game. It's from Thailand. And we started playing at Live Oak 27 years ago with Brant and Josh and Todd and Dale, CB, the whole crew was there. And then we still play. Like, it's still going now.
That's awesome.
So things like that, you can go away and come back and like, oh, Talk Raw is still a thing.
And you can still do it, which is pretty impressive because that's not, I mean, it's both hacky sack and volleyball. You got to get it over the net. That shit is not easy. You got to become.
For me, I was the hacky sack master, so that doesn't just go away.
Having mastered something allows you to keep doing it.
I mean, yeah, hacky sack. I mean, people that play soccer are good at it.
Yes.
Because they got ball skills. So
Right.
there's a whole new generation of guys who have joined who are soccer.
Right.
And they're really good with their feet.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm coming at it from hacky sack. So, like,
Right.
I'll be doing the outside left, no look.
Right.
Ching! Super
Nice.
slam. And they're like, what was that? How did you even do that?
Right. That's a hacky sack move.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But that gives you an opportunity to see people you're familiar with.
Yeah, and that's a sport. You know, sport's another activity that you're not just going to hang out and drink or going to a bar, blah. You know, you're going to do this activity.
Yes. And that's such a fun thing. I do that with cycling, basically, is that I show up, you know, we have for the last 30 years, I've gotten to be able to bike ride with friends. That makes my whole life better.
My new favorite thing, it doesn't really have anything to do with so much to do with Berkeley homies, is the bike party.
Oh, yes.
Because that's a monthly. There's 12 of them a year. You can invite every single person you know.
Love that.
They could come or not come. But, like, it's a dance part. It's several dance parties and mobile. You ride through these neighborhoods in Berkeley with the music cranking, bothering everybody, and they all come out. What is this? You're like, bike party. So that's always fun.
I just got some Christmas gifts to decorate my bike for the bike party.
You've gone on a few of them, right?
I have, because you've been the impetus for it. Right?
You over and over and over.
Yeah, you invite every month. You invite everybody every month. You you make it, you know, as a part of your leading the charge to community events.
Yeah.
Right?
And that party just has that feel of, it's not rich people.
Yep.
It's not white people.
Yep.
It's anyone with a bike. It'll be
That's
like
right.
a teenager, Hispanic teenage girl with a $10 bike. And she's like, hey,
it levels the playing field
today for $5. And
now
I'm out here. And you're like,
that's right.
So that kind of, and then there's old Burning Man ladies and
Totally.
lowrider bike guys. There's the scraper bike team from Oakland.
Totally.
Tinfoil in their rims.
Love it.
They'll host it down on 101st Ave in San Leandro. And like, I would never go down there except on that night when I'm with that group.
Totally. It's amazing to see these groups all come together to, you know, and to be in this egalitarian sort of landscape of bike party.
Yeah, they just share. The only thing they share is the love of bikes.
Exactly.
Beyond
That brings people together. And your kid, he leads the charge too. He brings the young crew.
Last party, he had like 20 kids. They had their boom box. And of course, when I show up, they all run up. Yay!
Isn't that amazing?
They all come running up to me. You're here.
That's great.
Get us weed. No.
The feeling of community when you have, and I think you and I share this, of having old people who are your connections, but then now having these young people, boy, does that sort of complete a whole feeling of community. Like, you know, we don't have a lot of
for them.
Yeah, and we don't have these like spaces like in Europe where they like, you know, these town squares. I guess Pete's Berkeley at Vine was like a town square for us. But like,
Yeah.
to
I mean,
have
Telegraph's a bit that way.
yeah, I would think though. Yep. I would agree.
Rawl Plaza.
Yep. I think, but being a part of a community, ongoing community in your hometown is amazing. And so many people can't, as you said, people can't just afford living in Berkeley anymore. They can't buy a house in Berkeley unless you're rich. And then if you're rich, you had to either have wealth, family wealth,
Or be working 24 hours a day.
Or be working in a area that pays a lot of money, like possibly, the tech boom probably got a bunch. Some of us, most of us just got lucky, and we were able to have connections and buy early enough, or have some generational wealth that allowed for it, or a house that you bought from your parents. I mean, that's essentially how people stay in Berkeley nowadays. My kids won't be able to do that.
Yeah.
The kids are teaching us so much, and they always have. We taught our parents, and our kids teach us, I think.
I mean, you're putting yourself out there with these kids all the time with the coaching. You're giving yourself an opportunity to learn
Completely.
from them. A lot of people will just, they won't open that door.
Yep.
To learning,
Yeah. I mean, right away, just being able to be, it's just a small thing, but like the fact that now we all introduce ourselves with our pronouns, right? We didn't do that 10 years ago. I certainly didn't do that in high school. Now that I'm surrounded by young people, I do that because that's what they do. Right.
And I keep telling Chase, it was like, we're in a bubble. They don't do that all over the U.S. People don't care what your pronoun is, and they don't even. It's not even something. Like that's unique, I think, to Berkeley.
They're not questioning the gender binary everywhere, but we are, and on purpose.
Yeah.
And that's something I think that Berkeley kids now, when they go out into the world, but also even, it's not just Berkeley people. It's like there's Bay Area, but there's little pockets of like people questioning the gender binary. And this idea of questioning it gets on people's nerves. Some people don't understand it, but then it's part of our culture. It's part of our values to learn to question things that have been done for years and years without questioning them.
Yeah.
It's a great example of it.
I mean, Berkeley was always, when I was younger, I remember thinking that San Francisco was the gayest male gay city and then they always said that Berkeley was like the lesbian capital of the, that was just something that was said about Berkeley. And I always was like, yeah, there's hella lesbians here, and they're married and they have kids.
Yep.
Chase's girlfriend she's got 2 moms.
Yep.
It's totally normal.
Yep.
It's like my mom and my other mom, and you're like, okay,
whatever. Yeah, that's a model of a family that you don't get everywhere in every hometown. Thank God for Berkeley. Maybe since we're wrapping up a little bit, it does sound like we are both celebrating these roots that we have, but also that we recognize that there are limitations, that we've gone through a bunch of different talks. We had a lot of fun. We keep connected to a lot of people, and that's essentially what I know means the most to you. It certainly means the most to me. It's not the partying. It's the connections that we continue to have, but also the memories that we have of how much fun, how connected we were, how much fun high school was for us. We have a story. And when we think of it, I think I'm always uplifted by when I think about it. And being able to do this and talk to people who also have that, but also people that don't have it, people who have said, I don't know. I was going to just say.
Well, right now you're gaming your memory, your nostalgic memory. You're like triggering them So you're
Yes.
kind of like, you're like a drug addict. You're going for that feeling and you're tapping into it
It's true.
with your podcast. You're like, oh, I'm going to get all these people to talk about this subject that I love.
Exactly. No,
That's good.
I'm
You're
not afraid.
nurturing it.
Say again.
Nurturing it.
I am. You're right. I'm actually sharing this idea that when I think of it, I'm uplifted. I have fun doing it. I'm engaged. It makes me happy to know that I have all these friends and this community. And then, yes, I am now just putting it out there on like the internet to see if anybody else is interested in it or wants to participate. But it does give me an opportunity to reach out to people like you, Greg, and talk to you about our lives together. We didn't tell the story about about going on a camping trip. Do you want to?
All right.
Should we talk about that last story and end with it? Do you remember how we got on that camping trip together? We went to
Yosemite, Eastern Yosemite. Well, I think we were friends from keg parties playing quarters, and that was our only connection. I had seen you. You were a Southsider.
Yep.
And someone was like, "We should bring Chandler," because it was like a bunch of Northside guys on that trip. I mean, we had already been camping with my 5 friends from the neighborhood. You were like from the other side of Berkeley, so we invited you. And which is a camping thing I did growing up. So I was like the leader and knew exactly what to do, what we were doing. We did a sauna. We did a sauna?
Yeah, we did a hot rock sauna.
We did the hot rocks. So for some reason we knew we needed to do these Native American sweat lodge. I didn't even know what it was, but I knew the sweat lodge was something I needed to do. Yeah. So we sat in that tent and we got all hot. We jumped out of there and we swam in the lake at night.
Amazing. This was like 11 miles in. I remember it was a long hike in.
Yeah, we hiked and stayed by this lake, and did the sauna, Native American sweat lodge. And then the next night, we saw the alien ship coming down the ridge. And we were all sure it was silent. It was hovering. It was coming towards us. And Skylar Oliver was like, I'm going to go up there and meet him. And we were like, no, don't do it. And we had to physically hold him back. He was drawn. He was going to go up there and get abducted or probed or something.
I thought there was a lot of people that ran to the top of the ridge.
Besides Skylar?
I thought there was more than just him.
But I was like, don't do it. Don't go up there. That's what I remember.
And do we remember the same thing, that it was a blue light?
Coming down and hovering and silent.
Yep.
Moving down a ridge with no obvious, there was no engine noise.
Definitely nothing. It was completely silent. And we were so far out there and it was pitch black, but then the whole environment just lit up with this blue light that I remember.
And afterwards, when we got down to the valley, there was all these cover stories in the news. Oh, they were testing a 2-stage missile over Yosemite Valley. It just didn't make any sense.
Nope.
Like back then, they had cover stories for the aliens, which is a common theme now.
Interesting.
Like no one's ever seen an alien ever, not once, not one confirmed. Sounds like a cover-up.
Yeah. Well, we were all convinced because when we came back, we were convinced we had seen definitely a UFO, something we could not explain, but we were all convinced it was, from outer space. Just because we were so fucking far out there, there was no reason to have a blue light hovering.
I don't think we weren't on any drugs that time.
That's a good question, because I know we had them there, but I don't remember. We could not have all seen the same thing. That's where, and everybody on that trip. It wasn't
a mushroom hallucination.
No, definitely not.
I don't even remember. We weren't on shrooms.
No, we weren't. And
we probably had them with us, but we weren't on them at that moment.
Well, we all saw the same thing, and when we see each other, we all have this connection. And these are people I haven't seen in a long time. But still, the people that are on that trip have this thing that we all think we saw together. Somehow I got invited to that event after not really being, wasn't in your crew. And I've gotten an opportunity to do that with a lot of different crews because I had my own crew, but I liked dropping into these other crews. And, you guys were always so welcoming and so available. And even though I wasn't a skateboarder or a snowboarder, I was able to hike with you guys. In fact, I tore my Achilles tendon that day, and we all went to the Devil's Post Pile afterwards in the Eastern Sierras afterwards. And I went to the hospital and got my leg worked out. But then we all sat in the natural hot springs and around Devil's Post Pile. So that was a good part of the trip.
Hot Creek, which they closed since
Did
then.
they? I wondered.
There was an eruption and some guy boiled alive.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I mean, I blame him. He was in the wrong pool drinking.
Right.
But because this guy boiled himself alive, they shut it forever.
Got it.
That river, it was like a river with the hot pools in the river.
Totally. I remember it.
Best hot spring in the whole world. Now it's closed.
Well, Greg, this has been awesome. I appreciate all the time that you spent talking about your hometown friends. I mean, it's fun talking about these things, right?
Yeah. No, it was fun.
And it's fun to be able to reflect on it, to see where these connections take us, and to appreciate them and to be aware. I think the more awareness that we have of them, the more feeling the more appreciation that we have for our lives and the people that were a part of it.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Hometown Friends and this interview with my Berkeley homie, Greg White. I loved his authenticity and the reflections he had on his hometown friend experiences. What sticks out for me about this interview is that he and I both experienced what environmental psychologists call place identity or place attachment to our hometown. We have a story in our minds about what Berkeley stands for and what the people from this place are like. We connect these representations to our own identities and then represent ourselves in the world within this framework. We are both proud of it and loyal to it, and we believe that we stand for it. I recently started a Facebook group to engage the hometown friends of Berkeley, California, and I asked the question, how much does being from Berkeley represent who you are? To date, there are almost 70 comments that mostly indicate that being from this hometown was an essential piece of people's identity. It gave people a sense of belonging, shaped their values, connected them to their friends that they grew up with, and it was the moral and spiritual North Star, and it ingrained with them a sense of multiculturalism and tolerance and served to shape their experiences no matter where they currently live. This reveals the powerful influence of our hometowns and that being from somewhere shapes who we are and how we act, who we vote for, what religions we follow, what types of people we associate with. Other professions often use this place attachment theory to design parks, city centers, monuments, and buildings to encourage a sense of community and people's loyalty to the location. We can also cultivate place attachment and increase the love of the places we live by personally engaging in the community, shopping locally, participating in local art and music events, cleaning up our neighborhoods, and contributing to local charities. This podcast brings together 3 areas of psychological research and interests of mine: friendship, place, and belonging. Hometown Friends is not only about the friends of our youth, it's about where we are from and where do we belong. I'm very curious to interview people from all over this country to explore how these influences shape the human experience and hopefully build stronger and more resilient communities by connecting people and encouraging them to share ideas and to what inspires them. If you have a story to share about a hometown friend, a place that you are from, or the ways that you feel that you belong, I want to hear from you. Please reach out to me on Instagram at Hometown Friends Pod, or friend me on Facebook. And if you want to do one thing to support this podcast, subscribe to the Hometown Friends YouTube channel. Thanks for listening.
We fall down.